Welcome, and thank you for your interest in the Twin Cities' next exciting transit project, the Gateway Corridor. The Federal Transit Administration, or FTA, along with the Gateway Corridor Commission and the Metropolitan Council, have initiated the environmental review process for the Gateway Corridor. This video will take you through what the Gateway Corridor project is and why it's needed, as well as what's included in the environmental review process and how you can get involved. This video summarizes information found in the scoping booklet, available at the upcoming open houses, in corridor libraries and city halls, and on the project website. When you see this symbol throughout the video, it means we want your feedback on what's being discussed. Let's start by learning more about the project. The Gateway Corridor is a planned 12-mile transitway in Ramsey and Washington counties in Minnesota. The Gateway Corridor runs parallel to Interstate 94, connecting downtown St. Paul with its east side neighborhoods and the suburban cities of Maplewood, Landfall, Oakdale, Lake Elmo, and Woodbury. The corridor connects the East Metro to the regional transit network via connections at the Union Depot hub in downtown St. Paul. By providing all-day, station-to-station transit service in both directions, the transitway would help meet growing transportation needs. Currently, 2 modes are under consideration, as well as different route options, also known as alignments, with stations proposed for each. These mode, station, and alignment combinations are called alternatives. The environmental review process will evaluate alternatives to help identify which alternative will ultimately be built. Let's talk about what the project aims to achieve and why it's needed. The purpose of the Gateway Corridor project is to provide transit service to meet existing and long-term regional mobility and local accessibility needs for businesses and the traveling public within the project area. The Gateway Corridor is needed for 5 overarching reasons. Let's listen to what corridor residents and business owners have to say.
What I'm really excited about is I work on the weekends a lot, and up until now it's only been commuter service Monday through Friday, and so now on the weekends I'm going to have the ability to get to work, be on time, and have flexibility of when I leave, and that's really exciting.
Transportation is just getting more crowded and more difficult all the time, and as people get older it's harder and harder to drive and park and do all those things. I think a real total transportation system is essential for the aging population.
I'm excited about seeing all the economic development that has happened on University, and I'm hoping that that will continue on out this way, because these sites, you do see a fair amount of development, and it's starting to come around, but I think it would be even better with the Gateway Transit.
Let's take a look at the modes, alignments, and stations under consideration. Both light rail transit, LRT, and bus rapid transit, BRT, are under consideration for the Gateway Corridor. Each mode would provide fast, frequent, and reliable service that would operate in both east and west directions through the corridor. LRT is a mode of transit that operates on a fixed rail guideway, using multiple trains grouped together. Just like the Twin Cities Metro Blue Line, LRT operates frequently, arriving every 10 to 15 minutes at stations spaced about a mile apart. BRT is a mode of transit that incorporates the features of LRT, such as level boarding, off-board fare payment, and shelters with amenities to provide a rail-like experience on a bus. For the Gateway Corridor project, BRT would generally operate in a dedicated guideway that runs in a separated facility from other traffic. Just like LRT, BRT would operate frequently, arriving every 10 to 15 minutes at station space about a mile apart. The Gateway Corridor route begins at Union Depot and connects downtown St. Paul to the eastern suburbs of the Twin Cities. The route generally runs along the north side of I-94 to Maplewood. For the eastern portion, several routes are on the table. The route and station locations make up the alternatives that will be studied further in the EIS. The scoping booklet has more detail on routes and station locations that have been studied previously and the routes considered during scoping. We are especially interested in feedback on alignments for the eastern segments of the corridor. The Gateway Corridor would be a part of a much wider network of other regional transitways. Connections at the Union Depot include the Metro Green Line and many other planned routes. Passengers would also be able to connect to the existing local and express bus network. 12 station locations are proposed. Some station locations depend on the alignment chosen. Stations will be located to best attract walk-up riders within a quarter mile or drive-up riders at park-and-ride stations. This is accomplished by locating stations with existing or planned employment centers, shopping centers, schools, or high-density residential areas to serve people wanting to travel in both directions along the corridor. For example, a rider might use Gateway to get from home in St. Paul to work at 3M and get groceries at Sunray on their way home. A Woodbury resident might meet a friend for dinner on the weekend, then head to downtown St. Paul for a concert. And that's the project definition as it's proposed in the scoping booklet. Taking a transitway project from an idea to reality is a long process involving many stakeholders. Studies for the Gateway Corridor began in 1991. The most recent study completed was an alternatives analysis, or AA, study in 2013. The AA evaluated a no-build alternative and a range of build alternatives, including commuter rail, LRT, and BRT alternatives on various alignments as shown here. At the end of the AA process, based on community input and technical analysis, it was determined that both BRT and LRT alternatives adjacent to Hudson Road best met project goals and objectives. Both alternatives end at the Union Depot and near Manning Avenue. The eastern endpoint was chosen to be consistent with Metro Transit's operating authority. We're currently in what's called the Draft Environmental Impact Statement, or EIS, phase. An EIS examines both the impacts and benefits of a proposed project. The EIS process involves ongoing public engagement. Within an EIS, there are different stages of development, and we're currently in the scoping phase. Scoping is the process of deciding which transit alternatives and issues will be evaluated in the draft EIS. Scoping confirms the purpose and need for the project, identifies appropriate transit alternatives, names significant issues for study in the draft EIS, and eliminates issues that aren't significant or have already been addressed. Your suggestions and opinions on the content of the EIS play a critical role in these decisions. Scoping decisions are to be finalized in spring 2014. In the draft EIS, the alternatives identified in scoping are analyzed, and one alternative is recommended to advance into engineering. Public input is then requested on this recommendation. A draft EIS will be completed by early 2015. Environmental issue areas to be analyzed in the draft EIS will include the project's effects on natural, social, and physical environments. A complete list of issues proposed for study can be found in the scoping booklet. There will continue to be opportunities to provide input on the Gateway Corridor throughout project development. Through April 16, 2014, we're asking for your input on the purpose and need for the project, which alternatives should proceed to the EIS, specifically regarding modes, stations, and alignments, and issue areas to be studied. Your comments can make a difference. The comments received will be considered by the Community, Technical, and Policy Advisory Committees, the Gateway Corridor Commission, and the Federal Transit Administration in their decisions about the alternatives and topics to be studied in the draft EIS. You can review the scoping decision document that is scheduled to be completed in late spring of this year to find the decisions and how your comments were considered in the process. A comment form is available in the scoping booklet to assist you in providing written comments. You can submit comments in writing by U.S. mail, email, or fax to the Gateway Corridor Project Manager at the address shown on the screen. You may also provide your comments verbally to a court reporter at the open houses on March 24th and 25th. Further information on the open houses, other engagement opportunities, as well as more information about the project can be found on the project website at www.thegatewaycorridor.com. Thank you for taking the time to learn more about the Gateway Corridor.